Redditors, what was your "did I freaking stutter" moment? Story 1. Found out my supposed best friend who I was letting live on my couch was cheating on me with my girlfriend at the time I lived with. I work in IT, so I work crazy long hours, but we had a massive power outage one day, and the boss said to just go home for the day, so I left 5 hours early. I caught both of them red-handed. I kicked them both out at once, which was ideal because it got a little two pigeons, one stone type of deal. They both apologized profusely and asked me even though they made a mistake, why would I kick them out in the streets in an area where they can't afford to live? Silicon Valley. I laughed my butt off and said, I guess that's something you two should have figured out during pillow talk, huh? And slammed my front door as hard as I could in their faces. Needless to say, it wrecked me for a while because I loved that girl, but looking back on it, I think it's the only moment in my life where I'm proud to have stood up for my morals and values and not taken any smack or continued to let people walk all over me. And that stuff is priceless. It sure is. Props to them for being such a savage and an overall Chad. Story 2. Work a job where I work a week on and a week off. After my week of work, I legit had wedding stuff to be doing, but we were in a tough spot last month, so I worked 3 extra overtime days to help out. I told them after that I'm busy. Well, 2 days later, I got a call from my boss. Boss says, hey, I need you to work tonight, all right? Me, I can't. I'm busy the rest of the week. Boss, excuse me? Me, I can't. I'm busy the rest of the week. Boss, busy with what? Huh? Drinking and partying? Me, what? Who said anything about drinking and partying? My boss legit couldn't wrap his head around the fact that we have a life outside of this job. He's legit threatened to not give me time off the next time I request off over this, and basically called me a sack of turd for not pitching in. I just worked 3 days overtime, so 10 days in total. I called him out on literally everything he said, and he backtracked on it all and apologized. Then he says, you realize I could write you up over this. I said, write me up for what? Being busy on my week off? Yeah, that would be dumb. My boss, yeah, I would. Get out of here with that BS. What's funny is since that conversation, the word has gone around and apparently he's told everyone that he caught me in a big lie about being busy when I wasn't. And that he had put me in my place and given me a stern talking to because I disrespected him. He never caught me in any lie because there was no lie to tell. I also never disrespected him. I made it a point to stay calm as I could during that conversation and talk to him with respect. I feel like he just wanted to look like the macho boss, but he's going around making it look like he caught me in some big lie and it's not true. I mean, he even apologized. What's sad though is I told him it sucks to put in 5 years here and basically be told I'm worthless just because I couldn't work one night. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what you're saying. Otherwise you wouldn't be saying, I'm sorry, how can I make this right? By treating me with decency, how about? It's just crazy to me that it's hard for my boss to believe that after we work a week straight that we might have stuff going on in our life after. It's like in his head, everything is about this job. Sorry man, but people have lives outside of work too. Story 3. Horrible situation. My mom was an alcoholic who was paying for all of her boyfriend's nursing home expenses and then paid all of his family's expenses like car payments, big purchases like appliances, or home remodel payments. My mom's alcoholism caused her health to plummet. She needs to be in nursing care. Her BF dies and his family never contacts her unless it's to complain that they need money. I take over her finances and cut off all their sugar mama payments. If they had stayed in regular contact or regularly visited her, sure, I would have considered it, but no. They just wanted her to cover their payments. They cut off the entire family. My mother had a lot of money. One of the a-holes, boyfriend's sister, calls me to tell me they're going to call Adult Protective Services to report me. I say, go ahead. I have nothing to hide and your guys are dirtbags. They were so flabbergasted that I said, did I stutter? They tried to report me, but Adult Protective Services just reached out to me to see if I needed help transitioning my mother to nursing care. A-holes. I stopped talking to my mom after that. She died never hearing from them again. I was the one holding her hand during her last few days of life. They didn't come to her funeral or the memorial her students held for her after that. It's rare you hear a story where the alcoholic is the nice one being mooched off of. Story 4. I was working at Wally World, and a customer who was on his phone from the start of his transaction, don't do this, placed a big package of toilet paper on the belt. I told him it was $10 even. He was still on his phone but handed me a $10 bill. Gave him his receipt and he walked away. Right before he walked out, he noticed I didn't give him the change and he tried to argue with me that I didn't tell him that it was $10 and he wanted a refund. I sent him to customer service because I couldn't give him a refund even if I wanted to, and he mumbled under his breath that I was a dumb idiot. I replied, it's not my fault you were on your phone. He turned his head around and said, what'd you say? I slammed my hands down on the countertop and said, loud and clear, I said it's not my fault you were on your phone. He took a step back and left and I went on my break. Worth it.
Hey, by the way, this video is sponsored by me and my friends at Rufus Rugs. We create custom, hand-tufted rugs that perfectly reflect your style. So whether you want to get one of our thumbnails as a rug for, research purposes, or maybe you just want to get some cool anime-style rugs for your room, check out Rufus Rugs by clicking the first link in the description.
Story 5. We dropped our dog off at the groomer for her usual trim. When I returned 3 hours later, the receptionist returned with a dog that, while adorable, was definitely not our dog. Not the same breed or even size. I chuckled and said, "This is definitely not my dog." To which the receptionist thought the appropriate reply was, "Yes, that's Miley." That was her name, but not the same dog. I retorted, "I think I know what my own dog looks like, miss." "Well, that's her. If you don't like the cut, you can discuss it with the groomer." That dismissive comment immediately made me lose my patience. "Hey, get out from behind that desk and take this dog. We will go back there together and I will show you which dog is mine. Not going to waste another breath arguing this with you." I found our Miley. It was the dog that was excited instead of confused when she saw me. I got that grooming for free. They groomed so hard they changed Miley's breed. Story 6. Had a very sheltered friend at my house during high school. She lived about a mile from me. She, because she's very sheltered and has a frankly very racist mother, made fun of my heritage. I'm mixed race, white mom, black Hispanic, bio dad who died. She then married a white Jewish man who raised me ever since. Made a comment about my mother being dirty because she was with a mud man. Made a comment about how odd it is that my dad hadn't given me away because I'm not his and my half-brother is his son. Therefore, there's no need for me. He has his own child now. I said in a very plain voice, "Get the hell out of my house." She thought I was joking, but I said it again. She asked why, and I said, "The fact that you need to ask makes me want to strangle you." Then she said her mom wasn't coming for another couple hours. I told her to walk home. She avoided me for a few days, and after that, she apologized profusely. She had said what happened to her other friends, and they all berated her and had to explain to her why what she said was horrid. I forgave her, but Jesus Christ, that girl was so sheltered. Story 7. I was having some issues with a family member, and a friend of said family member thought it was his place to call me up and try to mediate the dispute. After I get over the shock of this idiot trying to insert himself into the situation, I hear him offer some suggestions and steps to resolve the problem. I say to him, "Okay, here's what I want you to do. Find yourself some nice stationery paper, not some raggedy stuff ripped out of a spiral notebook, but some nice heavy bond paper for writing formal letters. Now I want you to write down all the suggestions you have on that paper. You got that? Okay. Now fold up that piece of paper until it's all sharp corners and shove it straight up your pie hole." Now you have to understand that this was all said in a perfectly normal tone of voice. Didn't yell or really allow any sort of emotional inflection in my voice, so naturally there was a bit of pause before this chucklehead says, "What?" To which I replied, "Did I stutter?" Then I told him to mind his own business and he was no longer welcome at my home and slammed the phone down. Story 8. Worked in a gas station and 2 guys walked in and kept looking where all the workers were. I kept an eye on them because they looked shady. Then I saw one of the guys put a package of sausages in his pocket and then come to the till to buy a Red Bull. Made my coworker, also my sister, move so I could serve them, and when I scanned the Red Bull, I said in the most casual way I could, with my heart nearly ripping out of my chest, "I'm not a confrontational person. Do you want to pay for the sausages you put in your pocket too?" The look on his face was priceless. I had to repeat myself and he just mumbles sorry and paid for the sausages. After they left, my coworker lost it and said how taken aback she was because she thought I was being rude to the customer before she realized what happened. She ended up telling the manager about it and I got a good old pat on the back and a sincere thanks. Doesn't sound like much, but it felt like a freaking Chad. I think if you find yourself attempting to steal sausages from a gas station, it's really time to reevaluate your life. I also think it's time for you to leave a like in this video and subscribe to the channel. Story 9. When I told the coach I cannot run a mile in under 9 minutes, background, I have a heart condition and running is not my strong suit at all due to my knees and feet being all weird. Not severe enough for surgery, kinda knock-kneed if you will. So the coach is screaming at us middle schoolers, "You need to run faster. Keep going. Run." And I'm like, sprint the straights, walk the curves, and he pulls me aside for walking. "You aren't running. I'm going to fail you." Well, this pissed me off being an edgelord middle schooler a long time ago, and I mouthed back, "I have a heart condition. I cannot run the mile due to health reasons. If you're going to fail me for that, I'm going to let my doctors know. Or if you'd like, I could run the mile in under 9 minutes, but you'll be hauling me off in an ambulance, so no, I won't stop walking." He just stood there and said, okay. He was a real pain and I don't think he was expecting that. I had just moved too, so I was the new kid. Lol. Story 10. My ex-boyfriend just recently tried to win me back after he was the one who dumped me. He was trying to win me back from January all the way to last month, and no matter how many times I said no, he always came back with the same excuse of, "I know you hate me, but I really miss you." So on the last day he tried to win me back, he pulls up to my house with flowers and chocolates and says he still loves me. He had woken me up from my afternoon nap with my dog and that really pissed me off. And I've had enough at that point. So I pushed the flowers into his chest and said, "Can you kindly leave me alone? For the last time, I am so sick and tired of having to reject you. It's pathetic." He then tried to argue with me, saying he knows he was wrong and he can change. I was so mad and cranky that I just yelled as loud as I could, "Get it through your thick skull that I don't like you anymore. I've told you this both in person and through text. I don't want to see you ever again. I blocked your number and you on every social media for a reason, you nut job." Then I slammed the door in his face and had some tea. Cuddled with my dog and watched The Office. He hasn't tried to contact me since. Story 11. Mine was pretty recent. I was working a retail job, think crappy gas station with a red logo, and had about a year and a half in. Worked all kinds of overtime for them, came in early and would end up staying late, always with the usual guilt trips to get you to cover their Approximately 6 months ago, I worked 45 days straight due to the camping of call-offs we had and people being fired for calling off. My schedule had been changed, from first shift to second shift, and I asked several times about going back to my original shift and was told every excuse under the sun. They were going to move me back as soon as they got someone hired and trained they would, but the girl that was working my original shift couldn't work until 11 p.m., even though that's what she was hired for, because she was afraid that her boyfriend would cheat on her if she was at work that late. Then at the end of June, the GM took 2 weeks of vacation and we had a woman call off 6 out of 8 days in a row. I had requested a Friday off as I had plans and I was scheduled off for the day, even telling them the day before, if she calls off, I can't cover it. Cue a text message from the assistant manager asking me to come in and to tell her that I can't, which then leads to another employee texting me about how I need to step up, I'm useless, people there hate me, etc. And after I came back at her, I texted the assistant manager asking to talk to her about getting this resolved since I and the girl were supposed to work our next shifts together. I was told that she doesn't take ultimatums kindly, and I needed to drop it if I wanted to keep my job. Went to work the next day and proceeded to get myself ripped about how I don't cover hours that need to be covered when people call off, that they're all tired of picking up my slack, and that when I ask for time off, I need to make sure that it's for a legitimate reason because I'm 30 years old and taking time off from work to watch a TV show is childish, and that I need to grow up. And she had talked to the other girl and that the other girl just had a little temper tantrum and she's fine now, so I should just let it go. You guys, if you could have seen the look on her face when I told her that my time was my time to do what I wanted, and it didn't matter if I sat and stared at a wall, and as a matter of fact, if you're picking up so much of my slack, you can pick up all of it because I'm quitting. And then I walked out on a day when we got 4 different delivery trucks in. I wonder what happened after. Were they calling them to come back or anything? I feel that would make it more satisfying. Story 12. I worked for a nonprofit childcare for a decade and the org was, probably still is, falling apart. We failed a licensing inspection because nobody would allocate resources to fixing serious issues, even though my site was running bare bones and making hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. During the inspection, the licensor noted that the floor tiles were exceptionally old and because of their dimensions, she suspected they contained asbestos. I knew at the time that some of the tiles were broken and pulling up from the floor, which would expose the children to particulate matter. I went to the regional director with a list of complaints and wrapped it up with a strong suggestion that we investigate the possibility that the staff, and more importantly the children, were being exposed to carcinogenic materials. He essentially responded with, "It's not in the licensing agreement, so we don't need to spend money on that." I checked out after that conversation and reported everything I possibly could to the appropriate authorities. Story 13. I was a manager in a retail clothing store. I normally did the operations side of the business. All of the office staff, customer service employees, and cashiers were under my leadership. On Saturday evenings, we were extremely busy, but we always had a minor lull between afternoon and evening shoppers. During one of the lulls, I checked supplies at each register, got the cashiers to tidy their areas and remove all the hangers that had been collected during the afternoon. I tried to make it a habit of asking people to do things rather than telling them to do them. I just thought it was a more decent thing to do. Most people understood that my request wasn't really optional, but this one cashier didn't quite get it. "Would you mind taking your hangers to the stockroom and cleaning your area up a bit before the evening rush?" Cashier: "No, I'm good." Me: "Let me rephrase. Take your hangers to the stockroom and clean your area up now, please." Generally, when a manager asks you to do something, they're trying to be respectful. It isn't actually optional. Cashier: "Oh, okay." The cashier was literally leaning over the cubicle with her chin resting on her elbows when I asked her to do this. Story 14. I saw a couple of people breaking into our garage, obviously to steal stuff. 2 people. There was a woman who looked like a junkie and a man who looked just like Trevor from GTA. I walk outside and stand far away enough that if they tried to rush me, I'd have time to react. I waited for the lookout, the woman, to see me before saying anything, just in case they didn't see me and tried walking away with something, in which case I'd have proof of criminality. She saw me, nodded back to the man, and they started heading out of the garage. I got a good look at them and say, pointing towards the garage than my house, "You do realize this is our garage, right?" I was really terrified because I'm only 16 and he was easily half a foot taller than me, holding a beer bottle. They tried playing stupid saying that they lived next door. They didn't, and they thought it was their garage, which is understandable since it's pretty separated from our house. I simply reply with, "Well, it's ours and I'm going to politely ask you to leave before anything bad happens." The woman takes a step but the man stays standing there, which is when I got even more scared than I was because I thought he was about to attack or something. He then asked something about the light bulbs in the garage being for sale, which I knew he was just trying to BS his way out because I know what's in there and there are no light bulbs in there. I'm willing to bet the entire earth to an alien on that. I said, "No, nothing's in there for sale. Now get off the property before I make something happen." And once again, she takes another step away and he stays still. I gave him the death stare of, did I stutter? The kind that you know that if you don't listen, you're going to get your face whooped. Under his buzzed voice, remember the beer bottle? He was buzzed the whole time, which is why I don't know exactly what I said, just the main point. He said something about the house next door again. It was so off I didn't understand a thing. So I asked him to say it again. Still didn't understand. I got a bit closer and told him to say it again. Still only got this house, referring to the house next door, which is closer to our garage than our house for some reason, out of what he was saying again. I tell him again, "This is our garage, now leave." He stands for a couple of seconds, I give him a deadlier death stare, and then they leave. To clear some stuff up before it's asked, the only other person home was my 11-year-old brother, whom I told to stay put as I was going outside. I didn't call the cops first because I didn't have any details on them before I went out there, other than a little glance I had out of the window through the black curtains. And the cops in my town aren't really the most reliable. The next-door neighbor's garage is behind their fence that encloses their whole yard. Story 15. My nephew and his boyfriend had very recently ended up on my doorstep for reasons I'm sure you can imagine. I decided I was keeping them and had a lawyer help me get things drawn up and notified both sets of parents exactly what was going to happen if they didn't want me to notify authorities. They were both pretty banged up when I got them. The boyfriend's parents, fortunately or unfortunately, wanted everything to go away and agreed to transfer guardianship without a word. Nephew's parents decided to try and argue with me. I basically had to cut them off mid-rant and actually said the words, "Did I stutter? He's not going back to you. And if you try to fight me on this, you're the one that's going to jail." Needless to say, they complied after a bit more of me losing my absolute marbles on them. I've never wished I could reach through a phone and smack someone more than that day. If they're both minors, I hope their terrible parents have to pay for child support. Just glad they made it out okay. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy. What's your satisfying, fucking called it moment? Story 2 felt really good. See you on that video.